Okay, it is December 1, 2016. This is Raynham Planning Board. I call the meeting to order. First up, Larry Silva.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Larry Silva from Silver Engineering Associates. Office in Bridgewater. What I wanted to talk to you about tonight was, I'm trying to get some direction here because this is being done for Becky Tees and also the Hughes family. The Hughes family actually owns this property, which is in the back here, which is shown as number 38R. It's 23 acres of land, and adjacent to it is the subdivision Shirley Road. When Shirley Road was first done, it was the 8 lots that are in the front, and then there was a connector strip that was left to get to some additional land that was behind it. Then later in 2000, I think it was in 2000, a subdivision came forward for an extension to it. And it allowed for that number 69 and number 70 to be built with this little T connector. But it never allowed for any connection through to the land behind it. And that's the acreage that I'm here to talk to you about. Had there been a connector through there, I think it would have been a lot easier to deal with what I'm trying to accomplish here. What I'm trying to accomplish is the Hughes have their homestead on this property, and what they'd like to be able to do is to build a second home for their son and their future daughter-in-law, Becky. And so to the rear of their site, there are cranberry bogs, and these 2 areas that I showed that are like ponds are ponds that are regulated for the cranberry bog operation. And you can see there's like a little pathway that comes up and goes through their property to access those cranberry bogs in the back. But there's 23 acres of land here, and there's certainly enough room for 1 or more house lots, but we're really looking to try to get 1 house lot in there and try to find a mechanism to be able to do it. There was the strip that comes in from starting in Taunton. That little triangle in the front starts in Taunton on Richmond and then goes quickly into Raynham, and that's 40 feet coming back. So what I've shown in here is sort of a concept that, as I was trying to figure out as to what we might be able to present to this board, but I really didn't have a feel for whether or not this is something that you've dealt with elsewhere, or if you have some guidance as to maybe how I should do it either this way or differently. And here, what I was proposing here is to maybe have sort of a less than standard kind of construction of a roadway that would be the right-of-way coming into that 40-foot right-of-way, and then maybe expand it to 50 where I can, and then have a cul-de-sac laid out there. And but the only way that it's practical is if it isn't built to full standards. But all we're looking to try to do is to find a way to get enough frontage and enough access to a second lot.
Okay.
And,
who owns 90?
Who owns 90? 90 is a separate owner. There's a house that's on there that is unrelated to anybody. It's unrelated to the Hughes or anyone else.
Okay. Who owns 38R?
38R is the Hughes. That's the folks that I'm working with.
Existing house, how long has it been there?
It's been there since before there was zoning, somewhere in the 50s or somewhere in there.
Okay. What,
In fact, the original plan that, this is the plan that when they purchased it, it actually had a little piece on the back of it. There's a little bit of a piece in the back, so it's actually 28 acres. But this is the way it was configured back in, this is 1977. That's when it had a little bit more in there. This was just a plan that was done to establish 81X, just to say this is what they own.
How did
They
they,
actually bought it earlier than that.
how did they get there?
How did they get to this? They come down that little strip.
The 40-foot strip that's shown on
Yeah,
here.
that's where their driveway is right now.
And that's owned by them, that's part
That's
of
owned by
that lot.
them. There is an easement for a right to pass for someone going to the bog, but that's it.
Okay, so they own
They
40-foot
own
frontage?
38R. They own that entire piece.
So they have 40 foot of frontage on a
They
public
have 40
road?
foot of frontage, 40 foot in Taunton and in Raynham. It's 40 foot wide, the car order coming in through Raynham.
What, they get a variance at some point, or
What's that?
they must have got a variance at some point?
No, not that I can see.
How old's the house?
The house goes back pretty far.
Before zoning?
Before zoning. It's a large homestead back there.
Yeah. No, I've seen the driveway, I don't,
Yeah,
Well, okay, my question was, when was the house built?
okay.
And
I'm gonna
you
try
were
to see if I can
thinking
answer that.
70s.
Not the 70s. No, it was not built in the 70s.
I mean, we've been doing stuff similar to this, Larry, but
What's that?
we've been doing stuff similar to this, with having, 3-4 lots on the 18-foot paved road. Basically, something like that.
So what they might, because see, I gotta be careful here, because I even took it upon myself. I'm not charging these kids anything at this point here during this phase. I just want to find out whether or not it's feasible for them. I didn't feel right to actually explore this for them and be charging them for anything. And so in saying that, my point is that they don't have a lot of money to try to make this happen. But, so if it means building out a whole road, then obviously that's not feasible to do, for them. The house itself, according to your records, it was 1957. So that's before subdivision laws were adopted here, correct? Yeah, so it really didn't, it was probably started off that 40-foot strip with some thought of it being a road, I don't know.
Okay.
There certainly was an access to the back.
The blue line that you have that kind of goes around the lot, 70?
Yep.
It's an intimate.
Well, I'm just showing that as like a tip, I suggested maybe a driveway go to a house in the back,
Okay.
as a proposal.
All right, I thought it was some kind of drainage or something because it was in
No,
blue.
The blue arrow,
The blue arrow
line with
is,
the arrow.
there is some sort of connection for water that comes from this wetland up front, adjacent to the cemetery there, and then it comes up and it goes to that back. So there is some drainage that gets out there. But this, the elevation of this ponds is definitely just related to the cranberry bogs.
So Hughes owns the cranberry bogs.
Hughes is not, they do not own the cranberry bogs.
People just have rights to.
They have rights to, the people have rights to store the water here for them and to have access as needed to come through there. They also,
Oh, okay.
I don't know if they have another access to it or not.
All right, so they don't have the bogs, but they have the water, a couple of ponds
They have to
here.
allow that water to be.
I see, okay. And you've got symbols here, are the wetlands or,
Yeah, there's some bordering, that shows on the GIS that there's some bordering wetland next to the area that's ponded there. It
okay,
probably, if it wasn't ponded and you took out the controls, it probably would be a couple of smaller wet areas there.
okay.
But there's plenty of upland area in the back on this side, and then even to the other side. They could have been to the left of the existing house. But I think that would be a nicer setting to have a house there.
Other people have questions?
Yeah, I'm okay with it, to tell you the truth. So it'd be more disruptive putting a road in than just doing it this way.
Yeah.
I mean, 27 acres for 2 lots.
And I mean, if you put restrictions on it, that obviously that said that, by allowing for that kind of relief is based on the fact that it is only the additional lot.
They're automatically put
They're
on.
automatic in there anyway.
I mean, they're automatically put on.
Yeah.
You can't do any more without coming back to the planning board. If you ever did this.
So like an 18-foot kind of gravel driveway with a turnaround at the end?
Basically something to get fire trucks in and out.
Right. I noticed like on the other one, it was done with a T, with this other extension. So either a T or a cul-de-sac similar to what would be a normal cul-de-sac, in terms of an area set aside.
The ones we've done has a like a backup for a fire truck, which you'd have to.
Is there anyone that you
We did
take
Tomlin,
a
we just
look
did
at?
Tomlin Estates.
Which one?
Tomlin Estates. We did a Church Street, the winery.
So Tomlin
Yeah.
Estates?
I mean, those were all paved. The gravel, you probably get so much to maintain. You might as well. I don't personally have a problem with the gravel. I mean, town's not touching it. And the other one was just the winery. I don't know what it was called.
Just
Yeah.
curious, have you ever approached the owners of 69 and 70 to see if you could get land and go right through there?
You know, I would say probably not. I did suggest to them that that was one of the options. But it's kind of one of those things, is how do you buy from somebody who really not selling? And they have mortgages that are set up based on their configuration. That means they have to go back to their banks. And, in other words, unless they knew these people, and these people were like longer-term neighbors or something that wanted to kind of help them out, it's much harder to try to make that kind of a situation. I agree with you, it would be nice. It would be simple.
I mean, I did something similar once myself, and like, the people were like, yeah, sure, and they got a couple bucks for, not really putting up with much of a hardship or anything, so.
Create frontage, though.
Yeah, so then to create the frontage, that now becomes more awkward for what you present here. Because now, you'd be looking at trying to do like a double hammerhead on top of,
Yeah, you'd have something.
it'd be kind of funky looking.
Funny thing is, they did the exact same thing you're asking to do, and they're gonna be the ones that are gonna be the disgruntled abutters. Possibly. They'd be the ones opposed to it, possibly.
Well,
The same
I
thing.
mean, this single house back there is, I can't see how it really would be disruptive to them. But I agree with you, it would be nice, but the configuration of what that road would look like after, I mean, for them to poke through, the only way, I guess,
I mean, if they pull through and you put some kind of a turnaround there, I don't think 69 and 70 still need that turnaround there, right?
They'd have
Right.
to get the frontage.
I mean, that could give them, oh yeah,
well, that's where they get their frontage. So I looked at that and I was like,
The way
nah,
that turnaround is the whole thing's like the 150 of frontage.
yeah, the two sides of it.
I don't know, like, one turnaround in the middle of the three of them.
Yeah,
I don't know,
remember that
it just,
Yeah,
you're so close right there, it just,
isn't
it
it?
seems like it's worth pursuing at least to.
Save you a lot of driveway.
Yes, and I think that's the trade-off, is how much work it takes to do the other way, and, because for them to get their access to the house, that's another extension, so you get the driveway coming up to be the road, then you get the driveway to come up to get to the house site,
Right, so
so,
instead of spending all that money there, if the people make a couple bucks or something like
Yeah.
that, maybe everybody works up better. And
Yeah,
so-
I mean, what he says, mortgages and things, if you have a couple of Wells Fargos or Bank of Americas, you'll be 5 years trying to get those
Yeah.
sign-offs.
I'll tell you what might work, though. What might work is doing it the way that Chris is suggesting, but maybe approaching them to get an easement to actually have your access through there.
You can't though, because in Raynham, the bylaw says you have to access through your frontage.
It does say that, huh?
Yeah, but they can access through their frontage, and they can still have a second access.
Yeah, yeah.
The one that they really use, right?
Yeah.
Nottingham Drive, yeah.
Yeah. But,
Well, you have some kind of stream or brook or something that's running through here, going out to the ponds for the bogs.
yeah, we have to deal with that. I mean, it's not a perennial, it's
And
a,
you've got,
some sort of intermittent.
I presume you got some kind of pipe in the ground that they use as drive over every day.
Yeah, so somehow that's managed now, so we would have to just take that into consideration. But I mean, I think that, you're giving me good feedback here as to how to sort of approach it, because like I say, I don't want to pursue something for them that is going to spend money that
How-
they probably don't have, and then,
from your cul-de-sac, as you show it on here, to where you show the house, possible house being, how far is that?
That's about 500 feet.
Well, I'd have to go take a look at it. I'd certainly like to walk it.
Because the other option is to put the house somewhere else, but I have to make sure I can put the house to, let's say, closer to the existing house on that side, which may be more practical, but I have to figure out how to get enough frontage for both lots that way.
Just move the lot line.
Just move that lot
Just take the
line.
lot line and kick it over.
Yeah, and I could probably get it,
Put the house,
or just take this cul-de-sac that I'm showing and maybe either do either the hammerhead type or or turn that over a little bit more towards the cart path that's there.
the path that goes out back,
Yeah,
you can put the house right to the right of it if you want it.
yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, and I was thinking if I did it to the left of
Yeah,
the existing house, closer to the Taunton line, like that way,
yeah.
then I'd have to figure a way to make sure they both have frontage at that point.
I'm just concerned, fire department, ambulance having to get out there.
I think that the other scenario would be better from that point of view, is to have the house further over to the left side.
The
Yep.
other thing you gotta look at is you gotta get that 125 by 125 square at the setback line. And you probably wanna ask, Bob Iafredi what his interpretation would be for your setback line there. Because you might have to have that up close.
What,
So in those here, that's something that's not waived in terms of having,
It's a
As part of that. That's gonna have to be there as part of the law.
Shape regulation, yeah.
yep. Yep, so we gotta figure out a way to get that in there.
is there a particular reason why you don't have that lot just right off the cul-de-sac here that you show? I know it'd be closer to the other house, but
No, you're saying putting the house like straight in from where
Yeah.
the cul-de-sac? That would probably work too. That would probably work just as well. But as Chris is saying, if I have to get that square in there,
You gotta have
I
that
probably
buffer in.
can still get it in though. I mean, I'm showing this at 1 inch equals 200.
What
Yeah.
what you're showing here for these two lots, roughly, what would the used lot be left with for acreage?
10 acres maybe?
About 10? And the other one would be about
Well, a
15?
total of 23,
Okay,
so,
yeah. So about 15, but about at least 5 of it is in a pond.
yeah.
Okay.
Still huge lots though, aren't they?
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
just looking at the lots on Shirley Road, if that's the size lot that you need, it seems like you would have
I could probably.
plenty of that right there at the cul-de-sac,
Yeah.
and
That might be the better way to go.
And those are 60,000 square foot of Shirley Roads. There was no water or no sewer when that was done.
Yeah, those are done. So these would have to be, so you could drop down because of
There's no water and no sewer there?
right now, I don't think that they have, I don't know if,
The road doesn't have any.
the road doesn't have it there,
No,
do it?
so you
Doesn't?
need
No.
200 feet of frontage.
Yeah, so you need the 200 feet. So you need the 200 and you need the 60,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, certainly the area is not an issue, it's just if you're trying to get it close to the other one. And then I would have I guess I'd have to have a double approval here because I have to get Taunton to sign off on that little piece in the front.
I don't know.
I wouldn't waste my time going there, but I mean,
I dealt with one of those in Bridgewater, on the West Bridgewater line, on East Wall Street, East Street, down that way near the junkyard. in
Gabriel had
Perry's.
that one.
The Perry's
Jimmy
junkyard
Perry.
is across the street.
Yeah.
And I had a triangular piece in there, and that was actually part of Bridgewater before it went back into West Bridgewater. And I had them sign off. I didn't know if it was legal if I didn't, so I did have
What
them
would you
sign
do
off.
as an attorney, Burke?
Well, yeah, I think your frontage is in Taunton, and I think you need their
Because
approval.
part of that construction is really in town,
Yeah.
so,
All I do.
they certainly, I gotta make sure that they're willing to waive Or either, if they don't want to waive the construction, then I guess the worst case would be, is they have to pave that little triangle.
They probably wouldn't take issue. They're a decent board.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
decent people who work with the time. I mean, because I've been in similar situations, like with Lyman's coming in off
Yeah,
106, the property line was actually on the street line.
right.
And then Gabriel's coming in, what was that, Norwood, or what was that one? You know which one I mean, on the East Bridgewater line?
Yes,
He had lots in East Bridgewater and
Yes, he
Bridgewater.
did.
Had to go through both boards.
yes, yes. Yeah, well, I mean, I'll look at that. I can always give it to them informally too, when we, you know, we try to make application here, we can just find out what it would take for me to get them to endorse.
Well, I would say I have a lot of reservations, might work, but I'm definitely, if I looked at it,
Yeah.
if I look at it and I'm up to my knees in wetlands and things, I'm going to take a pretty negative view of it. But I would definitely need to take a look at it. Those
Yeah,
are
it's
my
actually,
comments.
it's actually not, it's actually nice land back there.
Okay.
So I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. It is actually a way to allow for, obviously, very little development for an entire lot of land, basically.
Russ, any closing thoughts?
I think I like it a little better closer to the cul-de-sac, only because when you're talking about fire trucks and
Well,
stuff like that,
certainly,
like,
if it comes before us, we're going to want to see what
Yeah.
the fire department
yeah,
has to say.
how they gonna get back to where you're showing, because that looks like some tight turns and
Yeah.
just a little tricky there.
John, anything?
I'm back here, 'cause
Okay.
I did a lot of the engineering on Shirley Road
Okay.
years ago, and it's beautiful back there.
Chris, any other closing comments?
No.
Okay, you got some thoughts anyway.
I thank you very much for the time.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Metro Ford is not coming in?
No, they're not.
Okay.
Next
We had a bill that we signed and probably made it back to you. Minutes. We have minutes from October 6, 2016. I make a motion, we waive the reading and approve the minutes.
Seconded?
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Correspondence, we don't seem to have any. Certificate of action for the Meineke site plan. Is there anything for us to talk about on that? I know I had looked it over, and there were a few changes that you were making.
Yeah, I sent it out to everybody, and I think Russ answered me back. That was all. Jan was okay with it.
Okay.
He was okay with it.
Well, when I talked to you, a couple typos and things, you send it out after that, or?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Does that form J have to go back to you to put our other names on it, but witness, for notary?
Well, I notarized one signature, which is all
That's all you need?
I need.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say you can sign away. You seem to be missing a planning coordinator.
Yeah, there was nothing on tonight for him.
Okay,
Jan said he could just come in the next meeting.
makes sense to me. Serpent update.
There was no Serpent meeting last week because of the holiday. It's next Wednesday.
Okay. Is there anything anybody else would like to talk about?
How about the dead Patriot? No. No.
Wrong with back surgery, that stinks.
I see Mill Street is being developed
Yes.
more and more. You see the second lot they started clearing?
Yep.
Looking good.
All right then, meeting adjourned.